Hey everyone, I'm back. Today we're talking about the Xaoc Devices Sarajewo module, a beautiful BBD delay. You can see the 3 BBDs at the back here. I originally bought this thinking it would replace my verbose multi-delay processor in my live case and I would gain space, but of course they are absolutely nothing alike. So I ended up using it once in my live case. I really liked it. I just want to make a little demo of it. It's, like I said, completely different from the verbose module, which you might hear me make a lot of reference to the multi-delay processor because that's the delay in Euro I've used the most. I've had it for super long time and I'm pretty familiar with it. So I realized with this, which is kind of a classic delay, it's a classic BBD delay, delays things, whereas the verbose is much more of a sound processor tool for sound design, and this one is much more classic. The main selling point for me was the different outputs. I've really grown used to that with verbose modules, and also the feedback loop. You don't need an external mixer to rig that, so that's always handy. Also the sound, I've come to realize I'm a bit of a analog snob. It wasn't meant to be really, but it's what I like. I like analog things. So when it came time to find a new delay, I went to Modular Square in Paris and tried a few ones. Mimeophone, all the delays they had. I wanted something warm and analog basically, so the BBD was it. Side note, I don't know if that happens to you if you have a store near you, but every time I go to a store I just do the absolute worst thing. I feel like I started modular like 5 seconds ago, so it doesn't really help me to make a decision to go to a store. I realized might as well just buy on the internet and try it at home in my studio where I'm at ease, but that's another story. So let's dig into this module. It's a good one. So to start this demo, we have the SM1 sequenced by the dark time, which is off screen. It's going into the Sarajewo directly, and then it's going into my output module via the mixed output. So we are listening to it in mono for a start, but we might switch to stereo in a little while. So I think it would be interesting to maybe clock the module first. I know a lot of people are interested in clock delays. You can, of course, plug a clock into the sync input or just tap the tap tempo like I just did. My BPM is 138. This is my Demfo template in Ableton, but I divided down the clock on the Doppler. Let's start at the shortest position. I'll bring the oscillator 1. So here's my clean tone. It's dry. It's the SM1 in ring modulation mode going into the Sarajewo, and we bring the delay. You can already hear a bit of clock, BBD clock whine. It's honestly not bad. In a mix, it's impossible to tell. So this is with the feedback at 0. You get one repeat basically. With the tap tempo I've entered, you don't get into flanger territory, and basically this delay doesn't really go super fast. That's one thing I wished it did, but it doesn't. I'm gonna go ahead and plug it in stereo because I think it's a bit more interesting to listen to. So I'm taking the output from the first BBD into the right output and the mixed output to the left output. The tone is a tilt filter. It doesn't remove the low frequency, but it tilts, so it brings the high higher up or the lows higher up. I basically almost use it with the highs higher up, and you can already hear. The thing I like best about this delay is when it's on the brink of explosion, riding the feedback. It has a really beautiful sound to it. There's a few compressors in there. This quite a lot of circuitry, so it sounds really good. I'm just gonna go through a few of the divisions first as a basic show of the module. You can hear this pitch shifting happening. I'm gonna bring oscillator 2 as well. You can hear the repeats being filtered. It's quite clear until maybe 2/3 of the course, and then sometimes, depending on the material you are going in, the delays can be too filtered to be even audible. But that's what you get with BBDs. It's either you get a crazy amount of clock noise or you get filter delays. And I think they chose a good middle ground in here. You have to go a bit crazy with the feedback because we're in the end of the range. Since it's quite slow, you might be able to see the BBD going off range soon. So I think this is like the slowest almost we can get. Yeah, this is off range now. Let's try a few different outputs. We can try to bring a few sounds to have some more context to this. I think the tone has a very, very beautiful tone to it. If we had some reverb. That's the Eclipse. And we can go outside of the tap tempo mode by just staying pressed. And you can hear instantly it's much shorter, which I really like. Let's start a beginning. Let's go super murky. These super slow delay work, I think, pretty well on super slow material like this, but it's completely lost if you have a fast sequence. But if you like adding atmosphere to not much, then it's a good tool. There's some nice rhythms to find. And if I'm being 100% honest, I much prefer to not clock it. I get the appeal of a tap tempo BBD, even a tap tempo delay, but I've never been one to clock my delays. Once again, I'm used to the multi-delay processor, which doesn't have a clock. And that's perfectly fine. If you really, really want something on the beat, it's not that hard to find. Or to get close enough anyway. So as a first external loop feedback patch, we can use the Xaoc analog resonant phase rotator. I've taken time 3 into the input of Xaoc and back into the external feedback loop of Sarajevo. If we use Atlantis as a sound source with some triangle and square wave, sequenced by Metropolis this time, so you're not hearing any delay here because the wet was total. And if we bring the feedback, which will bring the Xaoc effect, you can clearly hear the 70s psychedelic effect of the phaser in the feedback path. It can be a good idea to use the PE1 to attenuate some of the frequency. The PE1 by ALM is a tape style EQ similar to those you would find in a 4-track cassette tape deck, Tascam stuff. It's just simple parametric EQ which can be used as a mixer in a pinch, which is really helpful. Another great quality it has is that it's 5 HP, so next to Xaoc 9 HP it rounds things up. We have some modulation in Atlantis coming from a smooth random LFO inside the SM1. Let's clock the delay now. Additionally, we can use LXD as a filter before going into the PE1, and we'll use the CVP next to it as an offset, which gives our knob-less LXD a knob. Some proper classic SH101 action, courtesy of Metro and Atlantis. And now we're a bit of a Tangerine Dream territory. And of course we can trig an envelope from the SM1 and use that, maybe we'll use the second one, in the CVP. To have a CV controlled feedback. Now I'll bring some stepped random modulation from the Swayman LFO into the time input. And I'll bring some dark reverb from the DP4. I still have manual control over the amount of feedback going through the LXD. So the LXD is basically 6 dB filter filtering my feedback on top of Kaminiak. We can try 12. Big difference. We can stick that envelope into CVP. Maybe remove the time modulation for a bit more legibility. Some Bubbly Plastikman territory. So while this delay might not be the absolute cool feature of the bunch, I think you'll have to agree that it's just pure vibe. It sounds amazing. If you like dub, if you like Richie Houghton, if you like BBDs, if you like beautiful noise, then this might be the delay for you. These little bursts of flange, I think they're amazing. It's really good to have utilities around. I mentioned in my previous Atlantis video the CVP, but it's an amazing module. You get offset, level, glide, and so you can really fine-tune your feedback here. Another thing I really like about Sarajevo is even when it clips basically when it's too much feedback for the module, it has a really beautiful sound. Analog, baby. So that's it for me for this one. I wanted to try to make a bit shorter video than my usual 30 minutes. Maybe this one will end up being 30 minutes again, but there's not that many patches. There's a lot more you can do with the Sarajevo module. You can, of course, add however many modules you want to the feedback path, spread those taps into stereo. I'm actually not too big on stereo and don't really have the modules to put the taps on the left and the right. My modulars are basically mono
monosynth in every sense of the word. I don't have a mixer which does stereo basically. I could take outputs into my sound card, but who wants to reach in the back of a sound card? I don't have a patch bay. So you'll have to find another video on YouTube for proper stereo patches. Hopefully this gives an idea of the sound of the module, which is the main thing I wanted to come across. It sounds good. I really love Xaoc modules. I want to do a proper demo of Chamaniac as well at some point. I don't know if you have these new modules. The frequency shifter looks really interesting, Cosalin, and there's also the 3-band stereo EQ that looks really good. And also interested in the DSP effect for live sets. So maybe I'll manage to get my hands on some of these and make a little Xaoc section. Until then, see you in the next video. Maybe it's going to be a big one about SM1, maybe not.